Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Famico Cahill. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Pretty good. Apparently, we have a little bit of bad news today when it comes to COVID, vaccination, drought, the availability of bicycles, and the zombie apocalypse. So
this sounds like more than a little bad news.
Yeah.
Little
all
bleak.
sorts of fun.
A little reminiscent of end times around here.
Yeah. So speaking of end times, let's just jump right into the cover story that you want to cover today, Thad. What's going on in the world of the pending drought?
Yeah, not pending, unfortunately. It is full on here. So this week's cover story is kind of a merging of local and statewide news. So we have a wonderful story from Cal Matters that's very thoroughly kind of examines the statewide drought in California. The governor has now declared an emergency in 41 counties and bracing for a fire season that looks even worse than last year's fire season, as well as water shortages throughout the state. And then the part that I wrote was really focused on Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting when 3rd District Supervisor Mike Wilson organized kind of an expert panel discussion about drought impacts in Humboldt County. And I got to say, it looks bleak. There's not a lot of good news there, as you intoned.
Yeah, so just to take a half step back, what are some of the elements that were presented to kind of inform the Board of Supervisors about the current state of affairs?
Yeah, so I think Supervisor Wilson tried to get subject matter experts looking at this from a variety of viewpoints. So first we heard from a hydrologist from the National Weather Service, and then we heard from some tribal representatives, the head of the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water Districts, their business operations manager, who spoke kind of the district is the largest, residential water provider in Humboldt County. And then we heard from the CAL FIRE chief for Humboldt Del Norte, the Humboldt Del Norte unit. And so starting, I guess, with the hydrology, I think most people are aware that we're in the midst of a really dry year, water year here on the North Coast. The Eureka office of the National Weather Service, their hydrology meter has us at about 60% of normal rainfall for the year. But that number kind of ranges from 50 to 70% depending on where you are in the county. Obviously, our wet months are behind us for the water year. The water year runs from October through September, so we're looking at some dry months ahead. So there's not really the hope that we're going to get some fall deluge that brings us up to normal. And making matters, much worse is that this is coming on the heels of a very dry year last year. And so we're actually in the midst of one of the driest 2-year stretches in recent memory. And so this has kind of reverberating impacts as the subject matter experts kind of spoke to. So first and foremost, I think for most people, the concern is wildfire coming off the year we had last year. And so Unit Chief Kurt McCrae talked about what they're doing to prepare. I mean, they're mobilizing full staff and full equipment deployments a full, I think, 4 weeks earlier than they typically do, and are anticipating a severe and a long fire season. And he kind of spoke to adding to, the dry conditions. They're also, I should say that the National Weather Service person also said that they're forecasting kind of warmer weather this summer too than typical. So kind of perfect fire conditions. And Chief McCrae talked about there's this buildup of dry fuels in the forest landscape, which I think has been much talked about, but it's kind of exacerbated this year by really dry soil levels. So usually some of those dry down fuels, fallen trees and stuff like that, will actually pull some water up from the soil and to raise their moisture levels and make them a little bit less combustible. But there just isn't that protection this year. The soils are dry themselves, and so we're really seeing like kind of record dryness levels in fuel in the forests, and so they're anticipating it to be a really long, rough haul. And one of the things he pointed to kind of support that is that last year at one point we had, I think, 5 of the 6 largest wildfires in California history all burning at once last fall. And this year, he said, kind of year over year to date, comparing this year to last year, we've actually already had 4 times more fires this year than we did last year at this point in the year. So, he's saying that certainly the potential is there for catastrophic fires, and is really urging all residents to do what they can, both for private property owners to really, build up and maintain defensible space around their properties. And then just for average folks to really practice fire safe practices in every way that they can do that.
Yeah, not great, right? So one of the things that was pointed out, highlighted, had to do with the fact that I guess there's the snowpack is 5 to 7% of typical. So that's another area of potential relief that's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but that's going to have an impact on the fisheries, wildlife. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that's that's going to have a huge impact on fisheries in other areas of the state. It's not as impactful up here in Humboldt, but it still is a factor. But tying into what we were just talking about with dry soil levels and stuff like that, the groundwater, so underground reservoirs, underground aqueducts and stuff, are under tremendous pressure this year from a variety of factors. But we're seeing tributaries to local rivers, the Mad River in particularly, drying up already. And that's, really alarming going into the coming months. And so everybody is kind of forecasting really low water levels, really warm water temperatures, algal blooms, and all the things that aren't hospitable to fish. So in the Klamath River, which we've talked about that in previous weeks, of just kind of how dire the situation is there. But what they're already seeing a massive die-off of juvenile salmon, and expecting that hardly any, if any, will survive, and forecasting a potential fish kill for adult salmon come the fall, when those water temperatures really start to ratchet up.
So this is all quite dire. That I think I saw it compared to 2002, where we had our last major critical fish die-off.
Yeah, UROC Chair Joseph James said that they're really expecting that, and they're going to do everything they can to advocate for additional flows to be released and stuff like that. But there's really just no escaping the fact that there just isn't enough water. The federal government has already cut off irrigators in the upper watershed, and the Klamath tribes have already sued to try to stop further releases from Klamath lakes, because they have a protected sucker fish there that is very culturally important to the tribe, that's endangered. And the government, the courts have basically said there's just not enough water. So we are going to further reduce the water levels in the lake, but environmentalists don't have a lot of faith that that's going to be enough to provide the flushing flows to really clean out the lower river and make it hospitable and healthy.
So there's a lot more in the article, like a really cool graphic showing the levels of shortcoming in the rainfall. Mm-hmm. Also, you referenced a little bit about how the supervisors are taking some time to study this before any kind of local declaration. Any last comments before we transition?
Yeah, I think one thing I didn't get to is just also this is going to impact the availability of just potable water in some small communities. The Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District is anticipating that some smaller community services districts are going to go dry this year and are going to have to truck in water, which is enormously complicated and going to pose all kinds of issues. But as far as next steps, the board was really split on kind of trying to take some kind of urgent action versus thinking that staff is already working on these issues and it might be redundant. Essentially what they did was appointed a task force to come back with proposals, but they're really limited in what they can do with this immediate crisis that we're going to be facing this summer. And I think this we're seeing this statewide also. I think the state as a whole is really in a reckoning of how to kind of come up with long-term solutions and plans to deal with this. And some of that's going to be curtailing the amount of water people can pull from the ground, from their personal wells and stuff like that. But there really needs to be a cohesive, countywide in Humboldt, but really statewide water plan that addresses this new normal that climate change is bringing. Because all the experts seem to believe this isn't an anomaly. This isn't just a dry year. This is us transitioning into a reckoning of a new normal for a while.
And the state is, I guess, budgeted $5 billion to try to get through this immediate crisis. But a lot of long-term investments will need to be made too. So thank you for keeping us informed, and we'll check back with you on this sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks.
What about COVID? Can you give us a sort of a quick, brief update on the state of affairs here?
It's not better, David. It's not better news.
It's really not. This week, Humboldt County has risen to the top. We have the highest case rates and the highest test positivity rates of all 58 California counties right now. Our test positivity rate is up toward 8%. Statewide, it's about 1%. We're seeing about, 12 cases per 100,000 residents confirmed daily versus, I think, about 2 to 3 in the state. Our numbers are just bleak and not getting better. As we head into this June 15th reopening of California, when the state's going to drop a lot of the business restrictions that we've become accustomed to as far as capacity limits and things like that, we don't really have the guardrails of public health orders and restrictions that we're not going to have those that we have now. And so really, for unvaccinated people, come June 15th, their options for staying safe are going to be just the personal responsibility of masking up and distancing and not going to multi-household functions and those kinds of things, or getting vaccinated. Because the rest, the framework that is attempted to protect them for some time now and attempted to keep our hospitals from becoming overrun is just not going to be there. I think the last tally I saw that 60% of Humboldt County residents who are eligible have now received at least one dose of vaccine. That puts us about in the middle of the pack for California rates. The health officer announced today at a press conference that Humboldt County is instituting the goal of trying to get that number up above 75% by June 15th. So there's going to be a big kind of messaging push behind that. But the message to right now to unvaccinated folks is, you have 3 weeks to get those shots and get that protection.
I think it's important to kind of restate too, as that has before, that the reason that these, protections have been in place in terms of gathering and in terms of distancing and masking they haven't been rolled back because it's safer. They've been rolled back because now we have room for you in the hospital. So it's not a thing where I guess these protections are being rolled back. Places are at full capacity, at June 15th, then it must be safe to go out. It is not safe. It is practical to take care of you when you fall sick.
Right. No, I mean, that's absolutely it, is trying to all of these measures for months now have been about protecting hospital capacity, making sure that there's room to care for COVID patients and non-COVID patients who are sick and need kind of emergency care. And, as vaccination rates increase, the state has really made the calculus that even if there are widespread outbreaks in certain areas at this point, there is going to be the hospital capacity to care for people. But it is not about individual protection. It is not about saying that it is safe and that the virus isn't transmitting because, well, as we see in Humboldt County, it certainly is.
Well, thank you again for keeping us in the loop on recent developments there too. Hopefully people figure out the path that works best for them as soon as possible.
Get those shots.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Jennifer? What's going on the arts and features beat this week?
Well, as I'm listening to Thad talk about drought and illness, I didn't expect that our version of the post-apocalyptic Mad Max would involve bicycles, but here we are. I always wonder in those movies, I'm like, where are they getting gasoline? Where are they getting bikes? Where are they getting cars? And, because right now I can't get a bicycle in Humboldt County. So Nancy Garcia, who is a new writer for us, welcome aboard, Nancy. She's a freelancer who has a story in this week's Get Out column. And she talked to some folks at bike shops, including Moon Cycles in Arcata and Revolution Bicycles. And the folks that she talked to there, among them, Sean Tetrault at Revolution Bicycles and Sage Satajan. I think that's how I say Sage's name, but I'm not 100% sure. Apologies, Sage. And Sprout Plankton, which is just a very fun name to say.
Awesome name.
And if you zoom in on the photo that goes with the story, you will notice that Sprout is wearing a very excellent Thing 1 and Thing 2 mask in the picture. Oh, well cool. Done, Sprout. Anyway, all these folks were talking about having kind of the same experience during the pandemic, which is, sure, spring last year, bike sales go up in spring. A lot of people were coming in. And as soon as, they were able to be open and up and running and, had figured out how to run their shops under COVID, they sold a lot of bikes. And normally that tapers off. It did not taper off. People kept coming in for bikes. And their theories on why that is range from, it's a number of things. For one thing, we're all trapped in our homes. And for a period, when there was no outdoor or outside activity in terms of, gathering and whatnot, the way that a lot of us kept our sanity was walking, bike rides, etc., hiking. These were safer activities, and these became safer distance activities to be able to do with other people. I mean, I know lots of parents who've had distance bike rides with their kids so they can see their friends before they ended up back in school and whatnot. Also, gyms closed. So suddenly people who were like, there's only so much Netflix I can watch. At some point, I need to get off my couch. And cycling was right up there. People were not only buying new bikes, and if you look at the picture, there's a very empty bike rack at Revolution Bicycles. Now, you might have to back order it, and it might come at 2022. You're waiting for a bike. If you have a bike to sell, it is a seller's market. Go out there. Don't gouge. Nobody likes a gouger. Also, if you need to get your bike fixed, you think, oh, well, I don't need to buy a new bike. I just need to get this one road ready again. At one point, I think it's Sprout who says, it's Sage says that, they ran out of tubes for tires and couldn't get new tubes. That supply chain problems have been an issue, maybe because of increased demand, maybe because of, shipping issues. We've had a ton of problems, right? Last year, we also had like wildfires. We had all kinds of chaos making shipments tough to get in Humboldt County. So they would look online on their suppliers' websites and be like, okay, so when is this going to be available? And it didn't say, because on the supply end too, they didn't know when things were coming in. So after a while, Moon Cycles shut down briefly because they were like, you know what, this is dumb. I can't be like, sure, we can fix this, but we can't get you the part to fix that. So, we can only do half the job. It just became kind of crazy. And without much inventory to sell, it wasn't worth it. So it's been interesting. And I'm hoping that these things will bounce back because I know Humboldt loves to be outdoors. And the other thing that was interesting was the folks at Moon Cycle said that commuting was another issue. People were, having to trim their budgets. And some of them stopped driving to work because, they were working from home. And suddenly they were like, well, if I'm not going to drive all the way to work, maybe I could just cycle commute to places I need to go. Or maybe I can't be paying for all this gas. And it led to a lot more bike commuting. So that's also increased the demand. If you are thinking to yourself, should I bike commute? I suggest you go back and read Jen Savage's excellent series, The Reluctant Cyclist from 2015, in which she attempts to become a person who commutes by bike. And it's a good primer on all the things you need to be prepared for. I hope you don't break your tooth, which she did. Not to scare you off. But anyway, it's a good read, and it's worth considering when you go into the bike shop. They're not lazy. They're not keeping up. We're out of bikes.
Who would have thought a bike shortage? I never even considered this as a problem.
Right. And so now is the time to kind of assemble your kinetic sculpture bike and turn that into a road bike, you know?
The DIY bike that you can do it.
Humboldt would have an adorable Mad Max scenario with all our kinetic sculptures. It would be adorable.
It'd be a good reality TV show.
Yes, it would.
So speaking of good show, you worked on another piece this week in your on your beat. Tell us a little bit about what you did.
Well, you know, I was thinking I wrote a satire column this week in our Seriously column, the updated CDC guidelines for monsters. And I was thinking about how it's just kind of an impossible job, right? You've got all the various and sundry diseases in the world to study, right? And then also being prepared for things you don't understand yet, things you haven't seen yet. I don't really understand how the CDC can do what it does anyway, much less when new things come up. I'm old enough to remember when Ebola was the shocking new disease, right? And, you know, we went through periods where like we thought anthrax was coming back, or like, you know, we were going to be dealing with all kinds of old school diseases returning in the form of bioterrorism. And then on top of it, you're still a government institution, right? And so you are subject to lots of administrative dramas and, you know, as we've seen in the past 4 years, political maneuvering. You're not always right. Information changes, data changes. And as we saw in, you know, last month when all kinds of new guidelines that some of which conflicted with state guidelines, like California decided not to go with the immediate changes that the CDC suggested and decided to wait and sort of ease into it on June 15. And then, you know, there's stuff that previously we were like, okay, masks, no masks, or wiping down groceries, not wiping down groceries. So I took those same conflicts and the same frustrations onto monsters. Everything from movie monsters like vampires, you know, the debate over whether they glitter. Is that a thing? Right? No, they don't. That's insane. Right?
What about the counting? What was that?
And that is actually a real old superstition that vampires kind of have like OCD. And that if you throw a handful of salt or rice or something, they'll have to stop and count it all before they can chase you and drink all your blood.
That's hysterical.
Always have salt on you. It couldn't hurt. I mean, what if it works? And then, for example, the werewolves, the werewolf department was previously in the Trump administration staffed by werewolves. So that makes it hard to work. We talk about what to do about xenomorphs, which, deep cut for you alien lovers, the xenomorph is the acid-bleeding, multi-mouthed black creature from the Alien movies. Nice. Close to my heart. I mean, not that close, not like... of course, zombies. And, you know, if we... You know that Brad Pitt zombie movie where they suddenly get like a vaccine or a treatment or like, and Will Smith is out here. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you know, trying to make a zombie vaccine and everything. And you always think, well, that's it. That's the end of the movie. They get the vaccine and it's not apparently because only 60% of those in Humboldt County who are qualified to get the vaccine, the free vaccine, have gotten it yet. And I'm begging you. Don't wait. I don't want to end up in a zombie movie with only 60% of everybody getting vaccinated. So let's consider this a practice run and do our best. And then we talked about ghosts and then things like in The Thing. I'm also old enough to remember The Thing. Who knows what we'll find under the Earth's crust, what it will behave like, what we bring back from space, etc. But no matter what it is, it's always the individual choices that affect the group, right? It's always like that one person who's like, well, I was bitten, but I'm just going to be cool about it for a minute. Or, you know, the person who's trying to like sell a sample of the new organism, like Newman did in that Jurassic Park movie, you know. And our individual choices affect the group. And sometimes that group is, your family. Sometimes that group is your county. Sometimes that group is the world, the known universe, other planets we haven't explored yet, etc. And I guess I am, on the one hand, kind of laughing at the foibles of the CDC while also being kind of amazed that they can do anything amid all this chaos. And who knows what's coming next.
That's awesome. I think I remember hearing that they do have or at least they used to have a zombie apocalypse page.
It is a teaching tool for children to give them an idea of what, kind of how to conceptualize contagion and contagion containment, etc., by using zombies as an example. But in fact, they do not have a really solid zombie plan.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's for education purposes only.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Well, this is great. People got to check it out because I'm laughing just hearing about it, and I was laughing the whole time I read it. So check it out. It's very, very funny. Thank you. And so, folks, that's just about going to do it for us this week. North Coast Journal is on newsstands right now. Go out, get a copy, or go get one. Access it online. Pick it up, stay informed, stay entertained. Thad and Jennifer, thank you so much. I look forward to speaking with you guys again next week. Take care.
Thanks.
See you next week. Get your shots.